The Dalai Lama said, if you want to be happy, practice compassion. If you want others to be happy, practice compassion. The title of today's sermon is Learning to Cut the World a Little Slack. And by way of warning, it has a surprise ending. The thesis is that by learning to practice mercy for ourselves and others, we can actually make the world a bit better place and make ourselves not only better people, but happier and more mature people as well. People who are able to, from time to time, transcend the particulars of their lives and touch the sacred mystery. A corollary to the thesis is that to learn mercy for others, one must learn mercy for oneself. This is much more difficult than it sounds. Stated in a slightly different way, if we wish to learn to cut the world a little slack, we must learn to cut ourselves some slack first. Let's go back 2,000 years or so ago to ancient Greece during its Roman period and examine a quotation by the Roman playwright Terence, who said, "Nothing human is alien to me." In other words, we all, unless we are sociopaths, have the full complement of human traits. There's within us the capacity to be a Mother Teresa, or an Adolf Hitler, or everything in between. We are all fickle/faithful, hardworking/lazy, kind/cruel, destroyers/builders, dominators/submissives, liberals/conservatives, and on it goes. You get the idea. We all come with a complete toolbox. Now here is the rub. We have learned to spit shine our ego images so that we no longer can even see some of who we are because society and our families of origin have taught us to fear parts of our humanity. We literally hate and fear some of what we are. So much so that we push these feared and hated parts of ourselves into the unconscious mind. That is until someone or some group comes along onto which we can project that which we are unable to bear. Certainly this trait of projecting parts of ourselves onto the other is the root of racism and political division in our country. Think how successful Hitler was at giving a frightened German public a scapegoat target on which to project their feelings of failure, inadequacy, and fear of dissolution of their society onto the Jews. Think about how we in this society have destructively projected our feelings of fear, hate, and being less than onto Blacks, Indigenous peoples, immigrants, and women. Think of how blatantly some politicians have been in encouraging us to scapegoat the political party with whom they are in disagreement by saying such things as, the current pandemic is a hoax cooked up by nefarious politicians. All journalists are liars, or that the goal of a particular political party is to destroy democracy. The bottom line of all the above is, if you want to be merciful and compassionate, stop scapegoating others and bear your own stuff. Stop offloading your stuff onto other people. Simple to say, hard to do. Some decades ago, and not in this parish, long enough ago and far enough away that I feel comfortable mentioning it here, I was chatting in my office with a young woman, a wife and a mother of 14 and preteen boys. She told me that her life was unmanageable. She worked really hard at maintaining her household and caring for her kids and husband. Yet, she said, her house looked like someone had set off hand grenades in it, and the yard was tended by a herd of LSD-crazed goats. She said, all I do is yell at my boys and my husband. Sometimes, she said, almost under her breath, I am cruel. I said, admitting you are cruel is half the battle won. She asked, what is the other half? I replied, admitting that part of you enjoys being cruel. End of example. When you bear your own fears, your own feeling of not being enough, your own shame, your impulse to cruelty, your desire to destroy, or your terror of abandonment, you will suffer. I used to have hanging on my office wall, our door rather, a large poster of a rag doll being rolled through the wringer of an old-fashioned washing machine. The caption read, the truth will set you free, but first it will make you miserable. Pulling your projections back to yourself will cause you to suffer, but your sufferings will lead to authenticity, transcendence, and yes, even happiness. By way of footnote, one of the biggest mistakes that Protestantism has made was to take Jesus off the cross. The Catholics got it right with the crucifix. There is suffering involved in transcendence. You can't just skip to the greater life. If you want to be fully human, you're going to have to suffer, and part of you is going to have to go through the dark night of learning the truth about yourself. There are no free rides, and for some, the price is very high. Further, there is going to be suffering whether you choose to bear your burden or to offload it onto the other. The choice is whether or not your suffering is redemptive suffering that heals and makes whole, or the kind of suffering that spreads like an infectious virus, ruining people and relationships in its path. End of footnote. So how do we learn grace and mercy? Let's imagine that there is a certain politician who you feel is acting in ways that are erratic and destructive. This theoretical politician encourages racism, fear of immigrants, isolationism, and is a prolific liar. Strangely, many people, some of them your friends, love and revere this person because he or she has given them scapegoat targets on which to download the parts of themselves that are too painful for them to bear. None of that is the problem, however. The problem is that you hate this politician. So start with your hatred, disgust, fear of this person. Your hatred is probably a good indicator that he or she has become a dumping ground for some of your unclaimed stuff, the stuff you are unwilling to face in yourself. The aforementioned dark night of learning the truth about yourself is realizing that everything you despise about your theoretical politician is just a shadow of your own soul, a shadow that you need to reclaim if you wish to learn love and mercy. It works like this. When you start pulling your previously unclaimed stuff back to yourself, you will suffer, and you will begin to understand that your wicked politician is in the same boat as you, and that to behave as he or she does signifies that he or she has a lot of unclaimed stuff, like the inability to admit a mistake, the inability to admit that he or she sometimes loses, or the incapacity to determine fact from fiction. With this understanding, you see clearly that even though this person may have attained great power, wealth, and fame, that he or she is an incomplete person who has a pretty painful existence because he or she does not have the strength or wisdom to bear the fullness of his or her own humanity. When you understand his or her pain and feel compassion, you have learned mercy. Seeing the world through the lens of mercy allows you to cut yourself and everyone included a little slack. You begin to understand why there are whole orders of Buddhist and Catholic monks whose primary work is to pray for the world. And you may even find that you, from time to time, offer up a prayer for your wretched politician. Now, for the surprise ending. When we learn mercy by suffering the burden of our own humanity, we are conjointly visited by a lightness of being, and a rising within of a genuine love of life. Your whole, messy, complicated taxes are due on the 15th. Have you taken the damn garbage out yet, life? For this, I have no explanation. It is a complete paradox. The more we are willing to bear our burdens, the lighter we become. It is an equation that just doesn't make any sense.